This week we want to start working on the layout of the pages for our website. Very often designers approach this by creating a wireframe. A wireframe is a diagram essentially of all the boxes in the CSS box model that comprise the page. Alright, so to start our wireframe, start with a simple box representing the entire page. This is going to be a div, a division of the page that is going to contain the content of our site. It's very common to name this div container. So a div with the ID of container would mean that there's one div called container on the page that is going to contain everything else. Within this page, there are common elements like headers. Headers are areas that often have branding information about your site, like the name of the site, a tagline, and sometimes a search box to help people find things on your site that they can't find with the normal navigation. Footers are also very common. The footer is an area at the bottom of the page with less important information or information that isn't the main content of the page. These would be things like the copyright, legalese like privacy policies and things like that that might need to be there or are there if people really want to look hard enough for it. That leaves the rest of the page being the contents or the main contents. It's very common to label this div with I have class content here, but actually there would normally just be one of these, so I'll give it the ID attribute, so ID content. Alright, so the header and footer are also divs, but they're such commonly used ones that in HTML5 there's a new tag specifically for header information and a new tag called footer specifically for footer information. Also within the header, this is a very common place to find navigation information. Here I have a menu to go to 4 of your more common types of pages. The home page or landing page is where you start out at. In our site, we're going to have recipes as the main content, so there will be a link to where the recipes are. There will be several recipe pages, but this will take us to that section. About us, very often there's information about the company or the person who's putting the site up, and then it's often it's common to have contact information for letting people get in touch with you, contact you in some way. Now this information goes within its own div. Again, this is so common that in HTML5 there's a special tag for that, nav, for navigation. Now within the content div, there are different types of information you can have, different kinds of boxes. Your main content would go in a box like this. This would have, like for a recipe site, this is where our recipe would go. Very often there will be a sidebar, another div that has related information but isn't necessary to understand the main information. Again, HTML5 has special tags. There's article. Article refers to any section of your site that could stand on its own, basically. If you think of a magazine with articles, A magazine will have related articles, but the article is something that really should be able to stand on its own. You could take a single article out of a magazine, reprint it, and people would be able to understand that and use that information. The sidebar is also a new HTML5 tag specifically for information that is typically on the side, but it does not have to be styled that way. The word sidebar here is being used semantically because any styling should really go in the CSS. We might end up putting information in here like about the author, about the person who wrote the article, maybe some additional information about cookies or cooking or whatever would be related, interesting, but not necessary. Very often within the content you will find additional navigation links. When we do the recipes, this link will take us to the recipes, but then if there are multiple recipes, they might all be listed here, so you could click on the individual recipes within the recipe page. All right, so just to complete the list of new HTML5 division tags, there's something called section. Sections are used to highlight different parts of a page, different parts within an article. It doesn't have to be within an article necessarily, but whenever you have a major division within the content, then the section tag is a reasonable thing there. This is to add structure to a longer, more involved site or page where your article might have several chapters or something within it. All right, now we have a bunch of tags here. I'm going to introduce one more. Very often, particularly if you're doing a fixed width page, people like to put that in another div that goes around it and allows you to center the container on that. Very often this div is called wrapper, and it allows you to have this centering of your main container, and also allows you to have like graphics or things floating around, decorate the background around your web page. All right, those are all the pieces that I think we would need here. We're going to construct something like this. We're going to start out without a few of the things in here. Let's see. We will have a wrapper. We won't have anything as involved as sections. We are not going to start out having a sidebar initially, but we're going to create these divs, the structure, a box within a box containing 3 boxes, and start labeling them and start adding some styles.